everybody. We just put some smellies on. There you go. Didn't want to make that too abrupt for you. Hi Anita. Hi Melly. Nice to see you guys here. We got more people today. That's lovely. I hope you really enjoyed yesterday's. Actually, let me move this round. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's reading with Robert Pym and his 2 rooms from his hotel short stories. Let me tell you now, before I forget at the end, he is going to return. He enjoyed reading for you all so much that he has promised to come back next Tuesday. I know, it's great news, isn't it? He has promised to come back next Tuesday and read for us again. He doesn't know what he's going to read yet. He's either going to read from his new book that's out, which is a political thriller set in Berlin called The Blood Summit, or he might read some more of his short stories again. So that'll be next Tuesday. I'm going to be your host all of this week. Samantha's taking a holiday, how dare she, but she is, and she'll be back with us next Wednesday. I also wanted to ask you, you must tell me, if you don't want this, you must tell me, but I was thinking of reading something from Alan Bennett tomorrow rather than 1001 Arabian Nights, to just shake it up and mix it up a little bit for Joanna too. So if that is okay for you and you would be happy for me to read a short monologue, a longish monologue from Alan Bennett, then do let me know. Write me an email, text message, whatever it is, on Instant Messenger. Put lots of likes here or something like that. This evening we will be reading the 17th night of 1001 Arabian Nights. I hope before I start that you are all having a better day today, maybe in isolation, or that you've already been having an okay time in isolation. But I know for anyone who's here in Austria who's going to be listening in, and hello, by the way, I'm going to say it now because we get a lot of people that listen afterwards and watch the stories afterwards. Hello to everybody who is not live but is going to be watching the story afterwards. We're really glad you do so. Please do feel free to give us feedback and lots of likes and anything you want, anytime you want. Send me a message, tell me what your heart's desire is. As far as reading is concerned, if you have a play that we'd like to read or a short story, then let us know what that is. On Saturday, we'll be bringing you another monologue. And today, some of the shops opened. I don't know what it was like in your area, but where I live in Vienna, there was certainly a lot more activity out in my little hood, in the neck of my wood, and I kind of felt it was very strange. Anyway, it was a very weird feeling. I don't know whether you all had the same experience, but it was certainly a little bit of a weird feeling today. But let's hope this is all going to be over very, very soon. In the meantime, while the theatres are still closed and while we still can't go to events, we will continue entertaining you with readings from 1001 Arabian Nights and whatever else we enjoy. So, without further ado, in case you forgot, because of course it is a while now since we read this, we had the 3 calendars, a sheikh, his wazir, and his master of swords had all entered the 3 ladies of Baghdad's palace, and they had asked her a question that they shouldn't have asked as to why they were doing certain things that they were doing. And this ended up actually being on pain of death. Then they all had to tell stories to save their lives, and if the 3 ladies of Baghdad liked their stories, then they were going to set them free. Oh, that smell is really nice. By the way, in case you didn't know, the smell that I have going, the incense that I have going in the background is actually called love incense. So there you go. So it's to create the atmosphere. And I did want to introduce you to my dog as well, but he listened to the music, took one look at me and walked off. So he's sauntered off into another room where it's a bit quieter now. Anyway, so the ladies of Baghdad, They had their 6 guests, 7 actually in total with the porter. They let all 7 go because they decided that they were going to be kind and would do so without actually listening to the stories of the last 3 travellers, and that was the Sheikh, the Wazir, and the Master of Swords. They just told them who they were, and they said, all right, you know what, off you go on your way. And the Sheikh, actually being a Sheikh and having lied, because he said he was a merchant, having lied about who he was, actually does really want to know why these women beat these 2 black dogs and why one of them strips naked and sings and then has whip marks on her back. So yes, if you have never listened to, if you're joining us for the first time, good evening. If you have never listened to A Tale of 1001 Arabian Nights, those who have been with us consistently since we started this 3 weeks ago can tell you it's full of debauchery, rape, violence, and God knows what else. Very, very surprising stuff. It's not the sweet tales that you see on Disney cartoons. So, we are now going to find out what has happened to the 3 ladies of Baghdad. Because, why? Because they have been summoned by the Sheikh to come to the palace and for them now on his turf to tell him their story, which of course, being in his house, they can't refuse because they can't threaten to kill him. So we are now going to find out what has happened to the 3 ladies of Baghdad, why they live alone, why they get naked and why one of them has obviously been whipped, why they beat their black bitches, their dogs, and sit back, relax, and enjoy the next leg of our tale. Salam, everybody. I hope you're sitting comfortably. If you want to go and get yourself a glass of wine, a cup of tea, do it now very, very quickly. And otherwise, just sit back and relax like I'm going to do. Okay, so here we go. Now, when it was the 17th night, Shahrazad said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that she," and of course this is one of the ladies of Baghdad, "stood forth before the commander of the faithful and began to tell the eldest lady's tale. Verily, a strange tale is mine, and 'tis this. Yon 2 black bitches are my eldest sisters, by one mother and father. And these 2 others, she who beareth upon her the signs of stripes, and the third, our procuratrix, are my sisters by another mother. When my father died, each took her share of the heritage, and, after a while, my mother also deceased, leaving me and my sister German 3,000 dinars. So each daughter received her portion of 1,000 dinars, and I the same. I'll be the youngest. In due course of time, my sisters married with the usual festivities and lived with their husbands, who bought merchandise with their wives' monies and set out on their travels together. Thus they threw me off. My brothers-in-law were absent with their wives for 5 years, during which period they spent all the money they had and, becoming bankrupt, deserted my sisters in foreign parts amid stranger folk. After 5 years, my eldest sister returned to me in beggar's gear, with her clothes in rags and tatters, and a dirty old mantilla. And truly she was in the foulest and sorriest plight. At first, I did not know my own sister, but presently I recognized her and said, "What state is this?" "Oh, our sister," she replied, "words cannot undo the done, and the reed of destiny hath run through what Allah decreed." Then I sent her to the bath and dressed her in a suit of mine own, and boiled for her a bouillon, and brought her some good wine, and said to her, "O my sister, thou art the eldest, who still standest too as in the stead of father and mother, and, As for the inheritance which came to me, as to you twain, Allah hath blessed it and prepossessed it to me with increase, and my circumstances are easy. For I have made much money by spinning and cleaning silk. And I and you will share my wealth alike. I entreated her with all kindness, and she abode with me for a whole year, during which our thoughts and fancies were always full of our other sister. Shortly after, she came to home in yet fouler and sorrier plight than that of my elder sister, and I dealt by her still more honourably than I had done by the first, and each of them had a share of my substance. After a time, they said to me, "O our sister, we desire to marry again, for indeed we have not patience to drag on our days without husbands and to lead the lives of widows bewitched." And I replied, "O eyes of me, you have hitherto seen scanty weal in wedlock, for nowadays good men and true are become rarities and curiosities. Nor do I deem your projects advisable, as ye have already made trial of matrimony and have failed." But they would not accept my advice, and married without my consent. Nevertheless, I gave them outfit and dowries out of my money, and they fared forth with their mates. In a mighty little time, their husbands played them false, and, taking whatever they could lay their hands upon, levanted and left them in the lurch. Thereupon they came to me, ashamed and in abject case, and made their excuses to me, saying, "Pardon our fault, and be not wroth with us, for although thou art younger in years, yet art thou older in wit. Henceforth we will never make mention of marriage, so take us back as thy handmaidens, that we may eat out our mouthful." Quoth I, "Welcome to you, O my sisters. There is naught dearer to me than you." And I took them in and redoubled my kindness to them. We ceased not to live after this loving fashion for a full year, when I resolved to sell my wares abroad, and first to fit me a conveyance for Bassora. So I equipped a large ship and loaded her with merchandise and valuable goods for traffic, and with provaunt and all needful for a voyage, and said to my sisters, "Will you abide at home whilst I travel, or would you prefer to accompany me on the voyage?" "We will travel with you," answered they, "for we cannot bear to be parted from you." So I divided my monies into 2 parts, one to accompany me, and one to the other left in charge of a trusty person, for, as I said to myself, haply some accident may happen to the ship, and yet we remain alive, in which case we shall find on our return what may stand us in good stead. I took my 2 sisters, and we went a-voyaging some days and some nights. But the master of the ship was careless enough to miss his course, and the ship went astray with us and entered a sea other than the one we sought. For a time we knew naught of this, and the wind blew fair for us 10 days, after which the lookout man went aloft and to see about him, and cried, "Good news!" Then he came down rejoicing, and said, "I have seen what seemeth to be a city, as 'twere a pigeon." Hereat we rejoiced, and, ere an hour of the day had passed, the buildings showed plain in the offing, and we asked the captain, "What is the name of yonder city?" And he answered, "By Allah, I know not, for I never saw it before, and never sailed these seas in my life. But since our troubles have ended in safety, it remains for you only to land there with your merchandise, and, if you find selling profitable, sell and make your market of what is there, and if not, We will rest here 2 days and provision ourselves and fare away." So we entered the port, and the captain went uptown and was absent a while, after which he returned to us and said, "Arise, go into the city and marvel at the works of Allah with his creatures and pray to be preserved from his righteous wrath." So we landed, and going up into the city, saw at the gate men hending staves in hand. But when we drew near them, behold, they had been translated by the anger of Allah and had become stones. Then we entered the city and found all who therein wound into black stones and stoned. Not an inhabited house appeared to be a spire, nor was there a blower of fire. We were awestruck at the sight, and threaded the market streets, where we found the goods and gold and silver left lying in their places. And we were glad and said, "Doubtless there is some mystery in all this." Then we dispersed about the thoroughfares, and each busied himself with collecting the wealth and money and rich stuffs, taking scanty heed of friend or comrade. As for myself, I went up to the castle, which was strongly fortified, and entering the king's palace by its gate of red and gold, found all the wassels of gold and silver, and the king himself seated in the midst of his chamberlains and nabobs and emirs and wazirs, all clad in raiment which confounded man's art. I drew nearer and saw him sitting on a throne encrusted and inlaid with pearls and gems, and his robes were of gold cloth, adorned with jewels of every kind, each one flashing like a star. Around him stood 50 Mamelukes, white slaves, clothed in silks of divers sorts, holding their drawn swords in their hands. But when I drew nearer to them, lo, all were black stones. My understanding was confounded at the sight, but when I walked on and entered the great hall of the harem, whose walls I found hung with tapestries of gold striped silk, and spread with silken carpets embroidered with golden flowers, here I saw the queen lying at full length, arrayed in robes purified with fresh young pearls. On her head was a diadem set with many sorts of gems, each fit for a ring, and around her neck hung collars and necklaces. All her raiments and her ornaments were in natural state, but she had been turned into black stone by Allah's wrath. Presently I espied an open door, for which I made straight, and found leading to it a flight of 7 steps. So I walked up and came upon a place pargeted with marble, and spread and hung with gold-worked carpets and tapestry, amiddlemost of which stood a throne of juniper wood, inlaid with pearls and precious stones, and set with bosses of emeralds. In the further wall was an alcove, whose curtains bestrung with pearls were let down, and I saw a light issuing therefrom. So I drew near and perceived that the light came from a precious stone as big as an ostrich egg. Sorry. Oh, it's okay, good. I'm very sorry about that. My phone was telling me something. I hope it's still okay, everybody. So I drew near and perceived that the light came from a precious stone as big as an ostrich egg, set at the upper end of the alcove upon a little couch of ivory and gold, and this jewel, blazing like the sun, cast its rays wide inside. The couch also was spread in all manner of silken stuffs, amazing the gazer with their richness and beauty. I marvelled much at all this, especially when seeing in that place candles ready lighted, and I said in my mind, needs must someone have lighted these candles. Then I went forth and came to the kitchen, and thence to the buttery, and to the king's treasure chambers, and continued to explore the palace, and to pace from place to place. I forgot myself in awe, and marvelled at these matters, and I was drowned in thought till the night came on. Then I would have gone forth, but knowing not the gate, I lost my way. So I returned to the alcove whither the lighted candles directed me, and sat down upon the couch, and wrapped myself in a coverlet. After I had repeated somewhat from the Koran, I would have slept, but could not, for restlessness possessed me. When night was at its noon, I heard a voice chanting the Koran in sweetest accents, but the tone thereof was weak. So I rose, glad to hear the silence spoken, and followed the sound until I reached a closet whose door stood ajar. Then, peeping through a chink, I considered the place, and lo, it was an oratory wherein was a prayer niche with 2 wax candles burning and lamps hanging from the ceiling. In it, too, was spread a prayer carpet, whereupon sat a youth fair to see, and before him, on its stand, was a copy of the Koran, from which he was reading. I marvelled to see him alone, alive amongst the people of the city, and entering saluted him, whereupon he raised his eyes and returned my salam. Quoth I, now by the truth of what thou readest in Allah's holy book, I conjure thee to answer my question. He looked upon me with a smile and said, O handmaid of Allah, first tell me the cause of thy coming hither, and I in turn will tell thee what hath befallen both me and the people of the city, and what was my reason for escaping their doom. So I told him of my story, whereat he wondered, and I questioned him of the people of the city, when he replied, have patience with me for a while, O my sister. And reverently, closing the holy book, he laid it up in a satin bag. Then he seated me by his side, and I looked at him, and behold, he was as the moon at its full, fair of face and rare of form, soft-sided and slight, of well-proportioned height, and cheeks smoothly bright, and diffusing light, in brief, as sweet as sugar stick. And of a truth Allah the Most High had robbed him in the raiment of perfect grace, and had purfled him, and fringed it with a cheek all beauty and loveliness, even as the poet saith of such a one, by his eyelashes shedding perfume, and his fine slim waist I swear, by the shooting of his shafts barbed with sorcery passing rare, by the softness of his sides, and glances lingering light, and brow of dazzling daytide, ray and night within his hair, by his eyebrows, which deny to who look upon them rest, now bidding, now forbidding, ever dealing joy and care, by the rose that decks his cheeks, and the myrtle of its moss, by jacinths bedded in lids and pearl, his smile lays bare, by his graceful bending neck, and the carving of his breast, whose polished surface beareth those granados lovely pair, by his heavy hips that quiver as he passeth in his pride, or he resteth with that waist which is slim beyond compare, by the satin of his skin, by that fine unsullied sprite, by the beauty that containeth all things bright and debonair, by that ever open hand, by the candour of his tongue, by noble blood and high degree, whereof his hopes and air. Musk from him borrows muskiness, she loveth to exhale, and all the airs of Abergrims through him perfume the air. The sun, methinks, the broad bright sun, before my love would pale, and suns his splendour would appear, a paring of his nail. He's good looking then. I glanced at him, with one glance of eyes which caused me 1,000 sighs, and my heart was at once taken captive wise. So I asked him, O my lord, and my love, tell me that whereof I questioned thee. And he answered, hearing is obeying. Know, O handmaid of Allah, that this city was the capital of my father, who is the king thou sawest on the throne, transfigured by Allah's wrath to a black stone, and the queen thou foundest in the alcove is my mother. They, and all the people of the city, were Magians, who fire adored in lieu of the omnipotent Lord, and were wont to swear by low and heat and shade and light, and the spheres revolving day and night. My father had ne'er a son till he was blessed with me near the last of his days, and he reared me till I grew up, and prosperity anticipated me in all things. Now, it so fortuned there was with us an old woman, well stricken in years, a Muslimah who, inwardly believing in Allah and his apostle, conformed outwardly with the religion of my people, and my father placed thorough confidence in her for who he knew her to be trustworthy and virtuous. And he treated her with ever-increasing kindness, believing her to be of his own belief. So, when I was well nigh grown up, my father committed me to her charge, saying, take him and educate him, and teach him the rules of our faith. Let him have the best instructions, and cease not thy fostering care of him. So she took me and taught me the tenets of Al-Islam, with the divine ordinances of the wuzu ablution and the 5 daily prayers, and she made me learn the Quran by rote, often repeating, serve none save Allah Almighty. When I had mastered this much of her knowledge, she said to me, O my son, keep this matter concealed from thy sire, and reveal naught to him, lest he slay thee. So I hid it from him, and abode on this wise for a term days, when the old woman died. And the people of the city redoubled their impiety and arrogance, and the error of their ways. One day, while they were as wont, behold, they heard a loud and terrible sound, and a crier crying cut with a voice like roaring thunder, so every ear could hear far and near. O folk of this city, leave ye your fire worshipping, and adore Allah, the all-compassionate King. At this, fear and terror fell upon the citizens, and they crowded to my father, he being king of the city, and asked him, what is this awesome voice we have heard? For it hath confounded us with the excess of its terror. And he answered, let not a voice fright you, nor shake your steadfast sprite, nor turn you back from the faith which is right. Their hearts inclined to his words, and they ceased not to worship the fire, and they persisted in rebellion for a full year from the time they heard the first voice. And on the anniversary came a second cry, and a third at the head of the third, each year once. Still, they persisted in their malpractices, till one day, at the break of dawn, judgment and the wrath of heaven descended upon them with all suddenness. And by the visitation of Allah, all were metamorphosed into black stones. They, and their beasts, and their cattle, and none was saved, save myself, who at the time was engaged in my devotions. From that day to this, I am in the case thou seest, constant in prayer and fasting and reading and reciting the Quran. But I am indeed grown weary by now, and by reason of my loneliness, having none to bear me company. Then said I to him, for in my sooth he had won my heart and was the Lord of my life and soul. O youth, wilt thou fare with me to Baghdad city, and visit the ulema, and men learned in the law, and doctors of divinity, and get the increase of wisdom and understanding of theology? And know that she who standeth in thy presence will be thy handmaid, albeit she be head of her family and mistress over men and eunuchs and servants and slaves. Indeed, my life was no life before it fell within thy youth. I have here a ship laden with merchandise, and in very truth destiny drove me to this city that I might come to the knowledge of these matters, for it was fated that we should meet. And I ceased not to persuade him, and speak him fair, and use every art till he consented. And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. So the next chapter in this will be the 18th chapter. That was the end of chapter 17. I think it was a bit of a bridged chapter today, a story to start another story. If you were here to listen to the last story, it was actually full of moral whatevers, and it was the last story was about the one calendar who was a prince and couldn't wait one night to discover a secret before terrible things befell him. And if he'd waited one night, he would have had 30 beautiful women at his disposal for the rest of his life. But he couldn't wait the one night, and as a result he lost an eye. So that was the last story. So this one was a bridge story, and wait until tomorrow, or maybe the day after, we'll see what we're reading tomorrow, to read the chapter 17. It is now, I can't see time. Perfect, it's 10:15. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Hi Elena, hi Jihad, hi Jochen, hi everybody. It's so lovely having you here. It was enjoyable reading to you this evening. I'm going to head off, drink a cup of tea, do some meditation actually now, because I'm finding that very, very useful, and some stretching exercises before I go to bed. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow evening with more candles, more beautiful smells. I wish you many salams, salam alaikum, and take care of yourselves. If your day is starting, when you listen to this, have a beautiful day. If you're in the middle of your day, have a wonderful lunch. If you're at the end of your day, have a beautiful, beautiful night with the most beautiful dreams you could possibly have. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye. This is me signing out. Bye-bye. I think. Oh, finished. There we go. Bye-bye.